He went from playing a president on TV to being one in real life. This is the moment Volodymyr Zelenskiy, the new president-elect of Ukraine, found out that he'd won. On the world stage, he's just the latest political novice with an affection for social media to sweep aside the old guard.
I'm feeling good, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Zelensky actually studied law at university, but never practiced, instead opting for a burgeoning comedy career. In 2015, he began starring as a fictional Ukrainian president in the sitcom Servant of the People. His own political party was eventually named after the TV show. Zelensky has been the unlikely frontrunner for most of the election. With poll ratings flying, he even went so far as to not show up for one of two scheduled stadium debates against incumbent Petro Poroshenko. The fact that Ukrainians have already spent years watching him play at being president may have helped him ascend. Zelensky projected a sense that people could trust him, whereas Poroshenko, the more experienced candidate, was seen as corrupt.
Next month, I will leave my post as president of the country. This is what was decided by the majority of Ukrainians. And I accept this decision. I will leave the office of the presidency, but I would like to emphasize, I am not leaving politics.
Many Ukrainians are looking for something new, frustrated by the slow pace of reforms and wearied by the 5-year conflict in the east of the country. Zelensky, they hope, will usher in an era of change.
Well, joining us now from Kiev is our correspondent Nick Connolly. Nick, this is a huge victory for Zelensky, who has no political experience. Has the significance of this result sunk in yet for the Ukrainians?
Good morning, Terry. Well, I think there's lots of scratching of heads amongst the Poroshenko camp, at least. People really kind of taken aback by the extent of that victory for Volodymyr Zelenskiy yesterday, him picking up almost twice as many votes as the incumbent. So far, we haven't heard any more from him. Zelensky yesterday speaking only very briefly to the press at his election campaign party, first to thank his team and then giving only the briefest of indication of what he plans to do as this transition begins, saying only that he would fire Ukraine's current prosecutor general, but giving no further indication as to who would be in his team. But this is now going to be a couple of weeks transition before he finally gets into the presidential administration a couple of blocks behind me.
So you're saying that his opponent is his opponent's camp are obviously scratching their heads, but what about the rest of Ukraine's political establishment? How are they reacting?
Well, people seem to have accepted this as a given, with about 90% of votes now counted. Those exit polls from yesterday evening have turned out to be accurate. We heard from the Prime Minister, Volodymyr Zelenskiy, congratulating Zelensky. Also, beyond that, President Poroshenko himself saying that he would do his utmost to help Zelensky with contacts and help him in the transition. This was a very aggressive campaign. Poroshenko throughout telling Ukrainians that Zelensky wasn't up to the job. So this was a pretty impressive and also magnanimous turn. The speed with which Poroshenko accepted his defeat and his willingness to accept the results and not to question those, that did take observers by surprise, but that seems to be where he's going. Poroshenko saying that he's lost the battle but not the war, that he intends to stay in politics. We have a parliamentary election here in the autumn. Petro Poroshenko saying he plans to contest those and stay in Ukraine's politics for now.
Does anybody really know what Zelensky is planning to do here, Nick? Because in a debate last week, he said he wanted to break the system. Nobody really knows what he means by that, and this at a time when Ukraine is having to navigate a very delicate relationship in a conflict with Russia.
Well, exactly, Terry, and lots of his critics would say that Zelensky has tried to promise all things to all people. He's more been about offering a sense of generational change, of being a new face, someone offering hope, offering a more positive campaign, while being pretty reticent on the detail of what he wants to do. In terms of the really big questions, in terms of joining NATO or the EU, Zelensky says that he himself is in favor, but that he would put that question to the Ukrainian people in referendums. In terms of Russia, I think it would be wrong to cast him here as a straightforward pro-Russian candidate. Yes, he is someone who speaks Russian rather than Ukrainian in his personal life. He mixes the two languages in his appearances, but he's very keen not to show himself as being Moscow's best friend, the Kremlin's best friend. That's something other candidates tried during this election, and it didn't do them any good at the ballot box. There was one candidate who travelled to Moscow before the first round and came in 4th place. So I think he has the potential here as someone new to maybe restart those talks about the future of Donbass and to speak to his Russian counterparts without some of the baggage that Petro Poroshenko has picked up. But I think it would be premature to expect Kiev and Moscow to make up in a hurry and for Zelensky to make any quick concessions to the Kremlin. I think the Ukrainian society would not accept that. Given the war and these 5 years of standoff we've had now, that really is just something that is taboo in Ukraine's politics nowadays.
Nick, thank you so much. DW's Nick Connolly there in Kiev.